The ocean breeze hit my face the moment I stepped off the train, carrying with it the faint scent of salt and something unfamiliar. Freedom, maybe. I hadn't taken a break in years, not a real one. Work had consumed me, and when love finally came, it arrived with promises and ended with betrayal. My ex, Daniel, had been everything. Warm smiles, late-night conversations, shared dreams. Until I found out those dreams were shared with someone else, too. That was 3 months ago. Now I was here in this quiet coastal town with its pastel, houses and slow rhythm, hoping to lose the ache lodged deep in my chest. I'd booked a room above a local cafe run by a retired couple who spoke more with their eyes than their mouths. It was perfect, quiet, detached, safe. On my second day, I noticed a sign near the boardwalk. Holistic touch, professional massage therapy. My back ached from tension I hadn't realized I was carrying. It seemed harmless enough. The spa was dimly lit, with soft music and the scent of lavender in the air. At the front desk stood a man, tall, mid-30s, with calm eyes and a presence that felt grounding. He introduced himself as Arav. His voice was low, composed, and carried no unnecessary charm, just professionalism wrapped in sincerity. I filled out a short form, answered the routine questions, and followed him into a quiet room. "You can lie down whenever you're ready," he said before stepping out. The table was warm. The sheets smelled clean. For the first time in weeks, I exhaled fully. When his hands touched my shoulders, I expected the usual. Pressure, technique, silence. Instead, I felt something shift. His touch wasn't just skillful, it was intentional, intuitive. Every motion felt like it understood more than muscle strain. It acknowledged unspoken weight. And as his fingers worked down my spine, I felt a quiet stirring. Not lust, not even attraction. It was something harder to define, something safe. Didn't speak unless necessary. A quiet, "Is the pressure okay?" here and there, never invasive. But with each pass of his hands, I felt more seen than I had in months. I hated it. Or maybe I was afraid of what it meant, that I was already letting someone in again. When the session ended, I sat up slowly, trying not to meet his gaze. "Thank you," I said, almost too softly. "You're welcome," he replied. "If you need another session, just let me know." I nodded, walked out, and didn't stop until I was back in my room. I lay on the bed, staring at the ceiling, heart unsettled. What was that? I booked another session the next morning. I told myself it was just stress, but deep down, something told me it wasn't. The second session began with fewer words. There was an unspoken familiarity now. Arav greeted me with a quiet nod, and I returned it with a small smile I didn't realize I'd been saving. Something had shifted since our first meeting. I wasn't just here to loosen my back. I was here because his presence silenced the noise in my head. He adjusted the linen, dimmed the light slightly more than before, and began. His hands moved with quiet precision, never lingering where they shouldn't, yet every touch carried a strange warmth. I tried not to read into it, but when his fingertips traced the tension in my shoulders, a memory surfaced. Daniel's laugh, sharp and careless the night I confronted him. I flinched. Arav paused. "Too much pressure?" "No," I whispered. "It's fine." He didn't press for more, didn't ask what made me tense. And somehow, that made me want to tell him everything. Between sessions, small conversations bloomed. He told me he loved early mornings and hated coffee, but drank it anyway. I learned he had studied physiotherapy before switching to massage therapy. He didn't explain why, and I didn't push. It felt like we were building something fragile, delicate threads that neither of us dared tighten too quickly. I began to look forward to those sessions in ways that unsettled me. The comfort he offered wasn't loud or obvious. It was in the way he remembered the exact point on my back where I carried tension, or how he adjusted the music volume just slightly when he noticed I relaxed more in silence. One evening, after the fourth session, I stayed longer in the room, pretending to tie my shoes. Arav was folding fresh towels. He glanced at me, and for the first time held eye contact longer than usual. "You seem lighter," he said. "Maybe," I replied. "Or maybe I'm just getting used to your hands." He smiled, brief, almost bashful, and looked away. "Touch has memory," he said after a beat. "Sometimes the body remembers things the mind tries to forget." I left with those words circling in my head. That night, I dreamed of him, not in a romantic haze, but in fragments, his hands on my shoulders, his voice steady, his presence quiet but undeniable. I woke up breathless, confused. I didn't know if it was attraction or just the echo of being touched with care after months of feeling invisible. The next morning, I walked past the spa without going in. I needed distance, clarity. But an hour later I was back, standing in the doorway, watching Arav speak to another client. He glanced at me briefly, and for a second, something passed between us. Recognition, curiosity, maybe something deeper. Booked another session. Not because I needed it, but because I needed him. The rain came unexpectedly that afternoon, soaking the boardwalk and casting the town in muted gray. Inside the spa, everything remained still. Warm lights, soft music, and the familiar scent of lavender. I arrived early, unsure why. Part of me had rehearsed what I wanted to say, though the words dissolved the moment I saw him. Arav greeted me with his usual calm. "Rough weather," he said lightly. I nodded, hanging my jacket on the hook. Fitting. As I lay on the table, I felt a heaviness in my chest. This wasn't just another session. Something inside me had been stirring for days. That night's dream had returned. Only this time, there had been a name whispered in the dark. Daniel. Arav's hands worked gently, as always, but my mind was racing. I had to ask. I needed to know. "Can I ask you something?" I said, my voice barely audible beneath the soft hum of the room. "Of course," he replied, hands pausing at my lower back. "Do you know someone named Daniel Hart?" I felt him freeze, only for a second, but enough. Silence stretched out, thick and loaded. Then, slowly, he stepped back. "Yes," he said carefully. "I do." I sat up, heart thudding. "How?" He folded his arms, gaze steady but shadowed. "We met a while ago, briefly. Before you and he were together, I think." My stomach dropped. "You think?" "I didn't realize it was the same Daniel until your second session," he added quickly. "When you mentioned your breakup, some of the details lined up." "You should have told me," I said, breath catching. "Why didn't you?" He hesitated. "Because I didn't want to ruin this. I didn't come looking for you. I didn't know who you were. But once I found out, I didn't know how to bring it up without making everything worse." My hands trembled. "You let me keep opening up. You let me feel safe." "I never meant to mislead you," he said quietly. "Nothing between us was a lie." I stood, barely able to meet his eyes. "You were connected to the one person who tore me apart, and now you're the one person I trusted enough to touch me again. I understand if you can't forgive me," he said, stepping back to give me space. I didn't respond. I just grabbed my coat and walked out into the rain. The downpour masked the tears I didn't want to admit were falling. I felt like I had been punched in a wound still healing. How could something that felt so honest be tangled with the same betrayal I'd run from? That night, I sat by the window in my room, watching the rain fall. Arav's voice echoed in my mind. Nothing between us was a lie. And yet everything now felt different. Everything now felt uncertain. The next few days passed in a strange quiet. I didn't return to the spa. I didn't walk by it either. I avoided the boardwalk, the beach, the corner cafe where I used to get my tea after each session. My body missed his touch. But more than that, I missed the silence he offered, the kind that made me feel whole without demanding anything in return. And yet, that silence had hidden something. I told myself I should leave, cut my stay short, erase the memories before. They carved themselves too deep. But I stayed, not out of indecision, but because something in me needed resolution. I wasn't sure if I wanted to forgive him or confront him again. I just knew I couldn't let the story end with a slammed door and rain. 3 evenings later, I found myself standing outside the spa. The lights were on, and through the frosted glass I saw his outline. He was cleaning, alone, slow, and methodical like always. My fingers hovered over the door handle for a full minute before I pushed it open. He looked up, startled. Then his expression softened, not with a smile, but with something far more vulnerable. Relief. "I wasn't sure you'd come back," he said. I almost didn't. He set down the towels, his voice careful. "I don't expect anything from you, I want you to know, Daniel and I were nothing serious. A few dates, nothing lasting. He lied to me, too. He was good at that." My throat tightened. I wanted to believe him. But betrayal, once tasted, leaves a bitterness that takes time to wash away. "I came here to forget him," I said, "and now I find myself drawn to someone who, without knowing, tied me right back to him." "I know how that sounds," Arav said gently. "But what we've shared wasn't about him. It was about you letting someone in again. About me seeing someone who reminded me what honesty felt like." The words caught me off guard. Honesty, not romance, not desire, just honesty. It was exactly what I had needed. "I don't know what this is," I admitted, "and I don't know what I want it to be." "That's okay," he replied. "We don't have to define it, but we can be honest. From here forward." I nodded, slowly. "No more secrets." "No more shadows," he said softly. We stood there, the silence between us no longer hiding anything, just holding space. Maybe this wasn't a love story in the traditional sense. Maybe it wasn't a story of healing or happy endings. But it was a beginning, rooted in truth, touched by pain, and strangely, stitched together by two people who had every reason to keep their hearts closed, but chose not to. I didn't reach for his hand, but I didn't walk away either.